Welcome to the Construction Disruption Podcast, where we uncover the future of design, building, and remodeling.
I'm Todd Miller of Isaiah Industries, manufacturer specialty metal roofing and other building materials. Today, my co-host is Ethan Young. Ethan, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, Todd. How about you?
I am doing well also. I always ask that question. It's kind of a humdrum question. I should ask something else. I don't know. I'll come up with a different thing for next time.
Okay.
I do have a couple questions for you. Okay, I'll go ahead and spill the beans. We sometimes open with some dad jokes, and so I've got a couple of dad jokes, and actually these are quizzes because I know that Ethan's heard these before. We'll see how good his recollection is as to whether he knows the punchline or not. Okay, dad joke number one. What do you call cheese that isn't yours?
Cheese that isn't yours. I don't know.
Oh, I gotcha. I'm impressed. Nacho cheese.
Oh, that's
nacho
good one.
cheese.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Next one. Now, I knew you when you were in first, second grade. I am certain that this joke came up at some time at Cub Scouts or something.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make a tissue dance?
I don't know. I'm drawing a blank. You got me.
Oh my gosh. You are breaking my heart here, man. You put a little boogie in it.
Oh,
Okay.
I have heard that one. Yeah, I've definitely heard that one somewhere.
Okay, let's move forward. Man, that was a dismal failure on my part. I apologize. So anyway, let our audience know, once again, in this episode of Construction Disruption, we are doing challenge words. What that means is each of us and also our guest have been given a word by one of the others that we are challenged to work into the conversation at some point as seamlessly as possible. You, the audience, can be listening for perhaps unusual words or non sequitur words that we say, and wonder if that's the challenge word. And at the end of the show, so stay tuned, we will reveal our success or lack thereof with using our challenge word. So you good with moving ahead, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm good. Let's get to it.
Great. So I'm excited about today's show. Having spent my entire career, which is more years than I like to say at this point, one thing I've learned, and I've spent my entire career in sales. One thing I've learned is that the business of selling is very dynamic. As part of developing a successful sales system for any business, you really, in my thought, you really never hit a point where you just sort of lock in and things never need any attention ever again. But on the other hand, making quick or haphazard changes for no particular reason in particular to a sales system can also sink the ship, sometimes literally. So today, our guest is a longtime expert trainer and consultant in sales. He has worked both in B2B, business to business, and B2C, business to consumer. In particular, he has worked in both those in the construction industry. Our guest today is Mr. Brian McCauley. Brian is founder of The Sales Guy. As you're going to find out, he is the sales guy. He is also a featured columnist in Pro Sales and Remodeling magazines. Brian's advice is sought after and respected by the entire industry. He has trained and inspired thousands of salespeople across the country. In addition to doing that training, Brian has had sales and leadership roles, both at wholesalers, distributors, manufacturers, and also contractors in our industry. Brian knows the construction industry inside and out at all levels. So I encourage you, strap in, grab a pen to take some notes, and listen closely to this great oracle and sage of sales wisdom, Brian McCauley. Brian, welcome to Construction Disruption. What a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Hey, Todd, thanks for having me. I always get a little nervous when I hear these elaborate introductions about somebody's skill set. It always gets me a little nervous, even from the jump.
It's well deserved. I have been looking forward to this show because been spending a lot of time kind of learning about you and watching some of the things you have, the content you have online already, and it's all great stuff. So let's kind of start back a few years ago. I'm kind of curious. Tell us what your start was in the construction industry, and as you got started in this industry, what were some of the things that made you kind of think, "Wow, this is an industry that I love and would want to make a career in"?
Yeah, I got started soon out of college. It was in the early 90s. I'm older than that, though. It took me, I believe, 8 years, 9 years to get a 4-year degree. I wasn't quite locked in college, so I had some fits and starts to get through. But my mom was dating a gentleman at the time that sold building materials. He actually had retired from Ford, had a pension, didn't really need the job, but he just liked to go out, meet, and talk to people. They were opening a new distribution center in Louisville, and so I went ahead and started there. Started inside, uh, learning products, learning processes, people, that sort of thing, the business. And then after a couple of years, about a year, went out into sales, and that was really the start. And I've stayed in building materials distribution up to about 7, 8 years ago. Now I'm in the manufacturing realm, as well as kind of running my little my company, the sales guy. But I guess what really got me, kept me, hooked me in this business, number one, the autonomy of sales. There's really nobody standing over your shoulder every single minute of the day, making sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You plan your own day, you plan your own week. And if your numbers are there and the margin's there and everybody's happy, it's a good thing. And there's just really, really good people in this business. I mean, all up and down the supply chain, just really good, honest, hardworking, decent people. And you can make a pretty good living at it too. So if you'd have told me 30 years ago when I first got started, I'd still be in this business, I probably would tell you, I don't think that's going to happen. But it's just kind of something you get into, and stuck's the wrong word, man. You just get into it. It becomes part of who you are. It's just a great business.
That's great. And that is a cool thought on sales. You kind of got control of your own destiny, but you're right. Great industry that I know we love as well also. So tell us a little bit. I mean, I know that you've got the consulting side with the sales guy. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing also right now on more the manufacturing side, and even a little bit about the types of companies that you consult and train and work with.
Well, right now I am a director of sales training for Cornerstone Building Brands. We have an commercial and a residential side. I work with our Apertures group, which is the windows. So it's the Symington brand, the Atrium brand, Plygym, and Silverline. And I'm director of sales training there. So what that entails is, man, I don't have anybody reports to me. I have before. It's not all it's cracked up to be. I have no program responsibility, no product responsibility. I just fly all over the country and talk to either distribution salespeople or in-home salespeople about how do we get more effective at communicating our message and trying to sell more effectively.
I'm kind of curious. One of the things I think our industry is known for is having some great mentors and people to learn from out there. Any particular mentors that you've had over the years that you've learned from? And I'm curious too, who do you pay attention to today, either inside or outside of the industry to, kind of keep stretching yourself and iron sharpens iron type thing?
Yeah, I would say early on, probably maybe 15 years ago, I crossed paths with a guy named Waldo Waldman, the wingman. And we hired him to speak at a national meeting when I was with Norandex. And I spoke at that meeting as well. And he was gracious enough with his time to view some video I had. I asked him to check out some video and see what he thought, give me some pointers. He was gracious enough to do so. And then he and I have stayed connected and stayed in touch ever since. And occasionally ask him for information. He'll ask me for information. So it's become, it's become a kind of a mentor situation, but he's just a really good guy. He's very sharp, really knows his stuff. And then somebody in our industry that I follow and like to follow is Bradley Hartman, just because he's been in our business. He's been on the builder side, and I think he has some really good ideas about how to craft a value message and look a little differently at what you do and how to communicate it more effectively. And I guess as far as being able to maybe to continue to dig and continue to get better, writing columns really helps me. When I first started writing Pro Sales and Remodeling Magazine, I'm not a great writer. I'll be honest with you. I struggle sometimes getting 600 words out of this head onto paper. And all I would take was training content and build me a little 600-word column around it, which was all great for about 12 or 18 months until I ran out of that content. Then I had to start really digging into my thinking, challenging my thinking, looking for different areas. And that's really helped me because it forces you to look at what you do kind of under a microscope. And can you build a better message? Can you tweak something a little bit differently? And it's actually helped me create a lot more content that I'm able to deliver in front of our customers and then some of my customers today.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. So imagine this. So you're in front of a sales team for the first time. Could be B2B or B2C, your choice. Maybe it doesn't make any difference. Kind of curious, as you try to get the attention of that sales team and get them to start thinking a little differently, what do you lead with? What do you lead with to get their attention and kind of draw them in and get them to start paying a little attention to what you have to say?
Yeah, there is a different opening in business to business and B2C, but I'll go business to business. Anytime I get in front of a group of distribution salespeople, my first question always is, why do your customers buy from you? And I hear things like trust, relationships, have to have good products, have to have good service, have to do it all for a fair price, and a myriad of other things. So I let them go, give me 4, 5, 6, 7 examples, and then I ask them, I said, look, man, this is all I do. I fly all over the country, east to west, north to south. I'm in front of folks just like y'all and your competition, to be honest with you. When I ask that question, do you think I ever hear anything different than the 5, 6, or 7 things that you all said? And always are saying, no, you probably hear the same thing everywhere you go. And so I'll think about that for a second. Because if that's how you're communicating what you do in your marketplace, then all the builders and contractors are hearing you and everybody else say the same thing. Wah, 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 wah. It just kind of becomes some white noise that we're really not able to cut through. So what I want to do over the next couple hours is let's dig into that a little bit, see how we can more effectively communicate our message. And it tends to be a pretty good attention grabber.
Man, I love that. No, that is a great response and get people to realize that, yeah, you got to set yourself apart from everyone else. So, I know that a lot of your career jobs have been in B2B. I mean, working for manufacturers, wholesalers, so forth. But a lot of times you're in front of B2C sales teams, training them. Any key differences you see between B2B and B2C selling?
Yeah, I spend probably 70% of my time in front of in-home salespeople, and the other 30% is in front of business to business. But there are some similarities, I believe, in the two. In both realms, you have to communicate effectively, and you really got to be able to answer the golden question. Anytime a salesperson's in front of a buyer, that buyer is asking themselves, why, based off all the options available to me, should I buy from you? And if we can't answer that question in a real meaningful, impactful way, we are driving them to a price decision that we don't want them to get to anyway. So you have to be able to answer that question on both sides. In business to business, I believe the number one skill you have to be effective, truly effective, and long-term effective is your ability to manage your time and your territory. And I've seen so many salespeople suffer needlessly because they can't get their hands around how to manage their time and their territory better. And quite frankly, in our industry, not a lot of companies give salespeople good tools to go out and do that. We're kind of left up to our own devices. So that's a big hot button for me, and I get pretty passionate about it because I struggled with that when I first got started. In my first year and a half in, and to the point where I almost didn't stay in sales, and I had no idea where I'd have been if I didn't figure it out. But I got challenged with something. I ended up figuring it out and was able to kind of power through it. So that was very helpful. In business to consumer, I believe the number one thing that you got to get on the table in those sales interactions is emotion. There has to be some emotional component to get somebody to want to move and change their house, add windows, put a new door in, what have you. And I think it was Socrates said, persuasion can't happen in the absence of emotion. And we're not never going to be able to persuade somebody if there's not a little emotional component there. Because there's a big difference between needs and wants, in my opinion. And especially business to consumer, somebody might need a door. They might need a window. They might need a roof, but what they want to purchase is all driving on their wants, and the wants is where the emotion's at. So um, the story I tell is I don't need the car I drive. I want the car I drive. I don't need a 75-inch TV. A 55-inch TV works fine just in 99% of the houses in the United States of America. But we want 75, 85 projection screen TVs. And so the wants where the emotion's at. And if you're in the home speaking to a homeowner, you really got to be able to tap into those emotions.
Yeah, I think that's a great insight. I wanted to chime into and ask you a question that is pretty relevant to our business, but what do you think about prepared presentations for sales for both B2B and B2C? Because we have one that we use. It's kind of a software-based one called Engage, but do you think a prepared presentation is a really helpful tool, or you think it's not quite always the right way to go? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, there's a word you hear often in this industry. It's called scripted. And I think there's a difference between prepared and scripted. I'm not a scripted guy. I mean, I don't give me a list of 100 words that I got to use in order to tell my story. But I do think some guidance on how we want to tell our story and preparation is critical. I don't wing a sales call. I wouldn't suggest anybody wings a sales call. So I think there's a lot to be said for preparation and planning. I just, as long as there's a difference between prepared and scripted, because I've talked to quite a few fairly large in-home sales organizations that may buy a scripted program from one of the myriad of consultants out there that sell them. And what they tell me is that, I buy it for X amount of dollars a month and it ain't cheap. And then I turn around, I have to change all the words in it, because they're using words that our guys won't use. And I'm thinking, well, if you're buying it, why do you got to change all the words? So I'm less scripted and more prepared.
Gotcha.
I don't know if this makes any sense, Ethan, but I was always taught in sales that customers make 5 decisions when they decide who, what, when, and where to buy. They decide on the salesperson, the company they represent, the products they're selling, the price of those products, and then whether or not it's time for them to buy or not. And I believe if we follow our presentation to how they're making that decision, our odds of success are going to go up.
Yeah, I like that for sure.
That is a great distinction. I love that the way you drew that out. Very interesting. So, kind of thinking a little bit about how you recruit and put together a sales team. Kind of like picking players on a football team or something. But what do you look for in terms of a prospective salesperson? Any particular personality profile, any skills, passions, experiences that you're really looking for when you're out there recruiting and choosing sales team members?
Yeah, well, as you know, if you've done it enough, it's a certain amount of it's a crapshoot. I mean, you can look for certain attributes, certain personality skills, but sometimes, man, there's just not a fit. It's really tough. I look for curiosity, how curious a person is about the role, about the company, the culture, how they see themselves fitting into it. Because if you're interviewing sales folks, man, they're going to spend a lot of time telling you how good they are, how much they sold last year, what was the margin, how much they've grown the territory. And they're going to spin it and manufacture it the way they're going to look the best. And they well should. But I'm looking for curiosity. I'm looking for sincerity. You almost got to have sort of a servant's heart, I think. You really got to want to help people in this business in order to be effective. And there is a tip or a tactic that I've talked about before, especially from a manager's perspective when they're hiring. If you get down to your final 1 or 2 candidates, I say 2 or 3 candidates, and those are who you're mulling over, I would invite both of them separately out to lunch with you and somebody else on your staff that they will probably be working level with or a little bit above, and just watch how they interact. Watch how they interact with the other person. Watch how they interact with you. Watch how they interact with the wait staff. Are they talking to this person about the job, the role, the company, their role in it, how I can help make your life easier? Or are they just continue to buffalo through about how great they are and how much they sell? You get them on that, and they're not really thinking that you're looking at them in that way, but it could give you some keen insights into them and how they may conduct themselves if they come on board.
I love that. Those curiosity, sincerity, servant's heart. I love the lunch thing too, and have done that a number of times. But it was kind of interesting. I was talking yesterday with a couple of our folks from operations, and they interview folks for positions in manufacturing. And one of the comments they made to me was, it seems like lately we've been interviewing people who are professional interviewees. Um, they, they really know how to interview well, but then the rubber doesn't really ever hit the road. And so you got some great advice there on kind of ways to sort through that. That's good stuff. So, here we are, 2023, the end of it. Man, the years fly by, but we're kind of in this hopefully post-COVID world. Curious, during that whole COVID phase in the last couple of years, have you seen anything change in sales? And obviously, then what things have stayed the same and likely will never change.
Yeah, I think number one is, I remember, well, heck, everybody's in the same boat, COVID. I shut down like March 14th of 2020. I think that was my last trip. I came back home and everybody's thinking, get your head down for 2 weeks, take a little vacation. This thing will all be over with. And it turned into 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year. And we really didn't know what to do. But what you started hearing really early in that is the face-to-face sales call is dead. Everything's going to be virtual. Buyers don't want to see people face to face. Sales will never go back to the way it was before. And that couldn't have been any further from the truth. As soon as things leveled off and you could safely begin to get back out there again, everybody wanted to get back out there again. I remember one of the first things that we did coming out of the COVID was a big show for a buying group. And usually you're working these shows, you're standing at your booth and everybody's just twiddling their thumbs, can't wait for the day to be over with. But it was actually fun. You're grabbing people and they want to be grabbed. You're engaging. It was really kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I found though, during COVID, I wouldn't say it spoiled us because it didn't. It was a really tough couple of years, is that salespeople didn't really have to go sell anymore. Whoever had the product was making the sale. And salespeople were just trying to keep their head above water. There was more requests coming in than you could fill. And that's changed. We really need to get back out and doing some more prospecting, some more picking up new business and some more selling. And we hadn't been used to that for, 18, 24 months. And that's a tough part of the business. And it's tough to be out there prospecting, looking for new business. And I think it's going to be a tougher pivot for salespeople to make that transition. I think that's one of the negatives that have come out of COVID.
Man, I tell you, you're just a fountain of wisdom there. Great observations on things that have happened, and you're right. I mean, yeah, many people didn't have to sell there for a while, but now things are kind of going back to more of a normal situation. We got to relearn some stuff. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So, salespeople sometimes get a bad rap, and you just mentioned salesperson, and it conjures up images of, okay, I'm dating myself, but Herb Tarlick from the WKRP in Cincinnati show. But, what steps do you think a professional salesperson can take to really immediately differentiate themselves from any of those negative stereotypes out there and, immediately show the prospect that I'm not going to be the same experience that you might be expecting?
Well, unlike Ethan, I'm old enough to remember WKRP in Cincinnati and Herb Tarlick, so I know exactly who you're talking about. And that's the kind of salesperson that's just trying to sell something. I just want to sell something, put something in somebody's hands and get paid for it. And sales can seem to be a complex career. I mean, there's a myriad of products, there's a myriad of features and benefits attached to each product. You got to be able to manage your time, your territory, your industry, understand the application of it, the services you deliver. But I believe sales can be really, really simple. I believe number one, you got to be sincere and you can't be fake. And be who you are. People read through fakes. So you have to be sincere and you can't try to be something that you're not. Number two, find problems to solve. And you're not trying to sell product, you're trying to find problems. And then once you find problems that you can solve, be confident in your price to solve those problems. And I believe you break sales down into those three buckets and you have a lot to chew on there.
I've heard you talk a little bit on some other podcasts about social media and how kind of your thoughts on social media changed at one point. And you told a story about your family. It involved John Calipari and the Today Show. But maybe you have other stories as well. But can you tell us, what role you think social media plays for businesses and also individual salespeople?
Yeah, I think social media, and I don't think you have to be very complex in your thinking. I believe you can be very, very, very simple with social media. I call it more of a grassroots campaign. I post multiple times a week to LinkedIn and Facebook, just merely sharing where I'm at, what am I doing, who am I with, tips I may have learned today. I throw all my columns out on social media, and I do that to maintain a brand of who I am and what I do, not only for cornerstone building brands, but just in general. And I believe everybody in your network needs to know what it is you do and who you do it for. And not one post a month, man, but 2 or 3 a week. You got to be very patient because it takes a while for that to build. So don't do it for a couple of weeks and think, well, I ain't getting anywhere. You got to continue to do it. And, I've had in-home salespeople that'll tell me to get more leads. They'll ask a homeowner, are you happy with this project? Well, yeah, we are. Well, let me ask you, ma'am, do you have a Facebook account? Well, yes, I do. Would you mind going on your Facebook account, making a post about the work we did and how satisfied you are, and tag me in it? Oh, honey, I'd be happy to do that. Now everybody in your network sees it, and it's that continuation of, this must be a good guy, or the people have used him. There's also a guy named Eric Gibson. He's in Dayton, Ohio. Squirrels with a Z, Home Improvement is his company name. And this cat gets like 30 to 50 leads a month on Facebook. Not during the winter, but spring, summer, and fall, based on his Facebook posts. Now he's humorous, he's consistent, but he does things like before and after videos. He'll walk a job site and explain to his customer, his viewership, what he's going to do on this house. He actually took a video at one of the supply houses that he buys at one time, and said, so if I'm buying this product to install on your house, this is the guy that loads it up in the truck. This is the guy to be delivering it. So he does all kinds of different stuff, but he's very consistent in it. He's very patient in it. He's a little humorous, doesn't take himself too seriously, but he does a really, really good job with it.
I am going to check that out. I do not know him, despite the fact I'm about 20 miles away from him. So I need to check that out. So I have no doubt, over your years, you've collected some pretty good, boots on the ground sales stories. Maybe people you've coached to better performance or people you've learned from. Perhaps a story or two you can share with us?
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you the first one. When you work in a corporate role, especially in distribution, they want you to go around the country and spend time with a salesperson. It's usually not for the right reasons. It's usually because somebody's struggling, needs some help, that sort of thing. I was able to encourage leadership at the time that, hey, let's look at this a little differently. Why don't I spend a little time going around the country and spending time with our folks that are really good at what they do and have been good for a long time? See if we can't learn some things that they do and add it to our communication to folks that are struggling. So one of those visits was down in Charlotte, North Carolina. A gentleman named Austin Crawford. Austin now works with, I believe is it Westlake Building Products?
Sure.
On the vinyl siding side of the business. And we were going to visit a customer of Austin's. Now, he said this guy bought 4x8 sheets of plain white fight pond from us by the pallet. My first thought is this cat can get 4x8 sheets of five pond by the pallet a lot of other places other than us for a lot cheaper. We just weren't set up to do business that way. So I'm thinking this is kind of weird. I'm going to keep my eyes open. So we go visit this guy. They're not there. They're at lunch. But what he was doing is he was buying this five pond in 4x8 sheets. He would cut it up. And he was basically creating a very early rendition of a virtually maintenance-free column. He was wrapping wood columns and he was selling them to builders in his area. So we looked at the guy's operation a little bit, and then they're not there. So me and Austin get in the car and we're driving to lunch. And I asked him, said, Austin, it's been bugging me since we left the branch, man. I said, this guy can buy five pond 2 or 3 other places by the pallet for probably $1.25 a sheet cheaper than we could sell it to him. Why in the world is he buying it from you? Austin said, I asked myself that same question before I ever went in and talked to the guy, because I knew if I couldn't answer that question, it was going to come down to $1.25 a sheet, and I was never going to get an opportunity. Austin said, so what I did is I told him, I said, look, here's what I'll do. You buy a pallet of 5-pond from me at X, which is $1.25 more than what you're paying now. And I'll come into this market one day a week until you sell through that pallet, selling your columns to builders in this market. Now, that was really the only product that guy was selling in the market. Austin's selling roofing, siding, windows, doors, other things. Austin was there anyway. So he continued to go in, help this guy sell his 5-pond, goes to him after he runs through the first pallet. His turns were good. His margins were still good. The guy stayed a customer for 3 or 4 years. So and I call that the why me principle. And I think if salespeople will ask why me before you go in and talk to people, it helps you look at things more strategically and not just transactionally. That would be one. Another one that comes to mind, Champaign, Illinois. I had a sales guy that worked for me that lived in the Decatur area, and we didn't get a lot of business out of Champaign. He said, well, look, there's nobody there. I know everybody in Champaign. Everybody there I know. What little's there, buys from us, or there's a reason why we don't get the business. And that just didn't make any sense to me. We didn't have a lot of business there. Champaign's a college town. They have their own public transportation. It's a pretty good sized market. I said, well, why don't you humor me tomorrow? Let's block off your day, move your calendar stuff around, and let's go over there in the morning and just drive around. I call it trolling, going up and down streets very systematically, see if we can see anybody working. He goes, it's going to be a waste of time. I said, well, it might, but it's on me. I'll buy you lunch anyway. So we get there, we're riding around. We saw 11 people working before lunch. 11 people he had no idea who they were when we started the day. And so we get to lunch and he goes, all right, stop. I'm a believer. We don't have to do this anymore. I'll start doing this in this market and some other markets, because it really opened his eyes up. You think you've got a pretty good penetration in an area, but there are so many people that buy the products that we sell. We have no idea who they are. And a lot of these folks you're not going to find unless you just happen to ride up on them, because they're not advertising anywhere. You ride up on them and you'll see them. And so that's 2 stories that I think could be useful to salespeople.
So when you were out doing the trolling, I mean, you're just driving neighborhoods looking for people who are installing and doing jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is awesome. I love it. And I love too what you said. And I got to admit, when I'm pretty selfish in this respect. If I have the opportunity to go out and be with a salesperson, I want to be with the good guy that I could learn from. But I realize the importance of you got to build into others as well. Well, so I think we're all going to agree. I mean, construction is a great industry. And we do think a lot of our audience members here on the show are folks who are fairly new to design or building or remodeling. And we really want to inspire them. Any words of advice you have for folks who are fairly new in this industry?
Yeah, I wrote a column in Pro Sales Magazine several months ago, and it got some really good feedback from some of the subscribers. And I actually created a training presentation built off of that article. And the article was titled "Lessons from the Road: 4 Sales Truths Learned on the Front Lines." Well, actually, I think in the magazine it was 4 sales truths you won't learn in college, but it's morphed into 4 sales lessons learned from the road. It's just like, hey, just listen to a cat that's been doing it a long time. Here are 4 things that I've learned. Number 1, not every buyer appreciates a good value proposition. Some of them don't care. If I can save a buck, I'm saving a buck. But that should not let the salesperson off the hook for trying to identify, craft, and communicate a better value message. So we should always be looking to craft and communicate a better message. The second truth is a lack of time and territory management skills will sink a sales career. We've already spoke about that before, but if you can't get a handle on that, you're going to struggle. And it seems simple, but it's not. A lot of these sales folks, they may have 100, 150, 200 customers that they're supposed to be managing. And you're never going to remember all this stuff unless you have some sort of a system that you can put everybody into and be able to create weekly plans so you're seeing who you should be seeing so things don't fall through the crack. The third sales truth is focus, effort, and attitude will take you a long way in not only this business, but in life in general. Folks, being able to focus on what's important, having the correct attitude, that when things go wrong, that you just don't, sink into a great depression, but you focus on what you can change and change what you can. And then the fourth truth that I really like is every month starts at zero. So no matter how good last month was or how bad last month was, I either have a chance to make up for it or a chance to try to build on it. And part of that last truth, though, it comes from a story. I was at one time when I worked for a company that was owned by Owens Corning. And our business unit was a pretty small part of that. But, man, they had a pretty all-encompassing training and onboarding program. So they find these 10, 12, 14 college kids, hire them. They all come into Toledo for 12, 13 weeks. They put them up in these little apartments. It's almost like college life for these folks still, And so they go through a 12 or 13-week training program. One day I happened to be there, and the person putting on the program said, "Hey, Brian, you want to come down since you're in town and just listen to our day today?" I said, "Sure, I'll come down." So I sat through the session. They were doing time and territory management. And it was all about maximize your time, make more calls, work, dig, dig, dig. And so at the very end, she asked me, she said, "Brian, you've been doing this a while. Any pieces of advice for our young salespeople here?" I said, "Yeah." I thought to myself, maybe you shouldn't ask me that. I told her, I said, "Look, yeah, there is. And I said, I'm going to tell y'all one thing. Y'all talked about maximizing your time. You've talked about working hard. You've talked about selling a lot of product. And I agree with all that. I really do. I work hard. I'm all over this country. I don't think anybody works any harder than me." I said, "But I'll tell y'all this. Unfortunately, I've walked through quite a few cemeteries in my time. And when you go through there and you read headstones, you read things like beloved dad, beloved grandpa, beloved grandmother. I ain't never seen a tombstone that said worked real hard and made a lot of money. I just haven't seen it. So I would suggest this. If you go home at night, and I don't care how much you sell, I don't care how much money you make, I don't care how rich you are, if you go home at night and you put your hand on your front door handle, if things aren't right on the other side of that door, they ain't right. And so we need to work to live, not live to work. So although I suggest all you cats work hard, take a little time to smell the roses, and work-life balance is incredibly critical.
That is some great advice, man. I just want to follow you around and sit in on all of your sales training. This is good stuff. This has been a great episode, and we've covered a lot of ground, and you've shared a lot of great stuff. But we are getting close to the end of what we call sort of the business end of things. But is there anything we haven't covered today? No, we've covered a lot. But is there anything we haven't covered you'd like to cover?
Well, we talked about sales and why we like it, and it's been a great industry, a great career for me, and really can't see me. Probably the favorite thing I've ever done. It's kind of like my favorite pizza, pepperoni pizza, and sales is kind of like that. So I'd say let's go ahead and end there. That it really is important to us. We love it. Stick with your favorites.
Well, good stuff. Well, so before we close out, in a moment, we're going to get your contact information too. But I do have to ask if you're willing to participate in something we call our rapid fire questions. So rapid fire consists of 7 questions we ask you. Brian has no idea what we might ask him, but some of these may be serious, some may be silly. All you have to do is give a response to each of them. Are you up to the challenge of rapid fire?
I feel like taking a risk today, Todd, so I'm good with it.
Good deal. Well, Ethan and I will alternate asking questions. Ethan, I'll let you ask the first one.
Alrighty, question 1. Let's say you're trying to survive a zombie apocalypse. What is that, or who is that one person that you definitely want to have on your team?
That's a really good question. I would say, and I'm not sure of his name, but he is the Navy SEAL Team 6 commander that was the commander during the Captain Phillips deal, where he had to pick the right time to take that shot when both boats were going up and down. That dude had a lot of courage, and that's the kind of cat I want in my corner. I want somebody ain't gonna give up.
We had someone once that said their grandmother, so that was a good answer too. But some great answers. Question number 2. At the end of your days, what do you want to be remembered for?
A good husband, a good dad, somebody that left something behind that mattered to people, and somebody that was willing to help people, even when it may not have been in their best interest.
Good answer. Good stuff.
I'm counting these questions too, so y'all don't slip another one in on me, by the way, just so y'all know.
Okay, we seem to have some technical difficulties, so I'm going to step in with the next question. I'm glad you're keeping track, Brian. We might try to sneak an extra one in. You never know, but have to ask you. Okay, this question I like to. Which do you prefer, the top or bottom half of the bagel?
I'm not a big bagel guy. I can't tell you I've ever ate a bagel, to be quite honest with you.
Really?
But I can characterize it. I'll compare it to muffins. I'm a muffin top guy, so I got to imagine if I'm a muffin top guy, I'd probably be a bagel top guy.
Gotcha.
Probably some similarities there. I think that makes sense. Well, let me ask the next question, then we'll see if we can't get Ethan back. This question we like asking because we're we kind of try to focus on new stuff and big stuff that's happening in the industry and in our lives. But can you think of a product or service that you have purchased, maybe in recent memory, that was a real game changer for you, sort of a where have you been all my life type product?
I can't because I haven't purchased it yet, but I've seen something here in the last couple of months that I think would be a really good tool for me. I got to imagine for other people as well. We talked about time and territory management, and that breaks down into a calendar, task list, and your calendar, and your notes. I'm sorry, and I'm an Outlook guy for my calendar and my task list, but I'm still old fashioned with notes. I want to put pen to paper. And I came across the product called Rocket Book. And it's a paper notebook with reusable pages, a special ink pen that you can erase off of it, and QR code at the bottom. So you make whatever note you want, you scan that code, and your actual notes, show up as a PDF in your phone. And I've wanted to try that because I think it'd be kind of cool. My only hesitation is I'm left-handed, and left-handed people, and if you're in your audience left-handed, I'm going to say, we tend to smudge ink as we write. We go right across with our palm what we just wrote. And a lady let me try her Rocket Book, and I smudged the ink a little bit. So if I could find a fine-tooth Rocket Book pen, I'd be a locked and loaded cat. But that seems like a really cool tool.
They are pretty neat. I've got one, and I'm right-handed, so I don't fight that issue. But yeah, it is very useful, and I found it really helpful for if I have to draw a drawing, maybe a detailed drawing or something. It just works really well for that, and you immediately get a PDF you can send to somebody, and yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
All right, next question. I guess last one, we're kind of going breakfast food with bagels and all that, Pop-Tarts and all that. But here's another food question. What's your favorite meal?
It's changed over the last couple of years. I'm a real big a grilled fresh fish guy right now. So I would have told you pizza a couple of years ago, but now I'm probably going to have to tell you down in Panama City Beach at Schooners, they're grilled or blackened grouper tacos. If you ever get a chance, dude, and you go down to Schooners, you need to try them blackened grouper tacos. You don't get any better grouper than you do down in Florida.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Amen. Good stuff.
And occasionally, if you can get you a grouper taco, put a pepperoni or two in it. It helps add a little flavor to it.
Hey, that'll add flavor. Pepperoni will add flavor to anything. I love it. Next to last question. What is a book you have read that had a significant impact on you?
I really like the book by Chris Voss, Voss, Never Split the Difference. If you haven't read it, I would highly encourage you to get it. He was a hostage negotiator for the FBI, and actually the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI at one time. Once he retired, he asked himself, I wonder if there's any correlation to negotiating a hostage release and negotiating a business deal. And so there is. So he'll tell a story about a hostage and to keep your hostage negotiation release and then tie it into a business case. And it's a really, really good book. There's a lot of good information to take out of there. I see it on my shelf right there. I probably have 45 little Post-it notes sticking out of the top of it because that's how I do my thing. I'll write something down, stick a Post-it note, go back and either reread it or build it into a presentation. And it's a really, really good book.
I will check that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Last question. Do you have a skill or a hidden talent that people don't know about? And if you do, what is it?
I don't know if it's either a skill or a talent, but I used to play drums when I was a younger man, and I don't anymore. And not a lot of people know that. I actually thought about buying a drum set during COVID because I wasn't doing anything, weren't going anywhere. I might as well, pick up the drums again. But maybe in a little band or two, nothing real serious. But my hair was a lot longer then. But you could tell I wasn't a serious drummer because in college I needed money to go to Fort Lauderdale on spring break, so I sold my drum set to get the money to go down to Fort Lauderdale, and I haven't picked up a drum set since. So I had my priorities. Maybe they were jacked up. I don't know.
Good stuff. Well, a few episodes ago, our guest was Jared Ribble, who was a professional drummer for a lot of years, played with a lot of bands and stuff. So Good guy. Well, Brian, thank you again. This has been great. And I do encourage folks to check out your articles in Pro Sales and Remodeling magazines. You always have great stuff. Just the other day, I shared one with our entire sales team. But for folks who may want to get in touch with you, how can they most easily do that?
Yeah, and I feel really bad now because we've been talking about preparation and planning all morning. And I was going to hold up the piece of paper with the QR code for my LinkedIn and Facebook, and I never printed it off this morning. So, dang, man. I didn't think about it about 10 minutes ago when you said that. So, can I act like my camera's broke or something and go off and see me scrambling around? I say you can go to my website. It's brianthesalesguy.com. Brian with an I, thesalesguy.com. Email address is brianthesalesguy@gmail.com. And you can look me up on Facebook or LinkedIn. You may want to put Brian McCauley and Louisville, Kentucky after it. And if I pop up there too, but I'd love to connect with anybody. I throw all my articles on social media and, what am I doing? Where am I at? So, yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody that wants to connect with me.
Good stuff. And we will put your contact information in the show notes as well. So,
cool.
So I do have to report, we were all successful on our challenge words. Good job, guys. I had the word football, which I managed to work in. Yeah. Ethan, you had?
I had Pop-Tart, which was a little clumsy, but, I feel like that was the best spot to put it in. So,
And Brian was our overachiever. He worked his word in a couple times. Your word was?
Pepperoni.
Good job.
Yeah.
Hey, fun time, guys. This has been great. Brian, thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed this.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to thank our audience for tuning into this very special episode of Construction Disruption with Brian McCauley, the sales guy. Please watch for future episodes of our podcast. We always have great guests. Don't forget to leave a review, please, on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Till the next time we're together, keep on disrupting, keep on challenging, looking for better ways of doing things. And don't forget to have a positive impact on everyone you encounter. Make them smile, encourage them. Simple yet powerful things we can all do. So, God bless and take care. This is Isaiah Industries signing off.
This podcast is produced by Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building products.